be live, I believe. Let's see. What's going on, everybody? My name is Justin Thomas. Welcome to Before the Dust Settles. This is the Westworld After Show for episode 3. I'm joined with my lovely co-host, and thank God we are. Full disclosure, I'm running a low-grade fever. It's not COVID-19, so don't get all freaked out. It's just poor health in general, people. So excuse me if I'm a little bit foggy tonight, and I'll be more taking us on the slow Sunday stroll and having our wonderful co-host Hacks Dogma and our wonderful special guest W.Axel Foley from Westworld Theorycast, which I'm going to have to get the link for in the chat below, as well as our behavioral tech Johnny Bragg kind of take the reins here. But everybody go ahead and introduce themselves, starting with our my lovely co-host right here and predictor of Charlotte the Betrayer, officially. Get it right, Reddit. Hacks Dogma. Are you muted? You're muted yourself.
Hey everybody, I was muted. Hacks here, and yeah, thank you so much for being here. We'll try to make up for someone playing hooky over there, but yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll see what fever it takes to get Justin Thomas not to rant as much, and I think it's whatever fever I'm running right now. So, W.Axel Foley, introduce yourself. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes. Hello, my name is Axel, and I am from the Westworld Theorycast. You can go to dvrpodcast.com. Check us out. We're doing 3 shows a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm also covering Better Call Saul with Ashaya from History of Westeros. That's been a lot of fun, and I'm very glad to be here with all 3 of you gentlemen. I hope you feel better, Justin, and I'm excited to talk about Westworld.
There you go. Yeah, I'm gonna get that link in the chat right now. And Johnny Bragg, our behavioral tech, introduce yourself, let people know where they can find you, of course, and then run us through the technical specs and the name of the show in a brief little. Give us the cliff notes on the meaning behind the absence of field.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny B. Crazy from House of the Conqueror. Remember, if you have any questions for tonight, at me in the chat, please. Westworld Season 3, Episode 3, The Absence of Field, the 23rd installment in the series. It's 57 minutes long. It was written by Denise Day, directed by Amanda Marsalis, and the title comes from a poem called Keeping Things Whole by Mark Strand. It was released in 1964 as part of the Sleeping with One Eye Open collection. It's all about fragmentation and unity. We're all part of a whole, so to speak. That's the very simplistic term. Maybe I'll read it for you later.
Yeah, you're gonna use. He promised slam poetry for us. No. Thank you as always. And I just put Axel's link in the live chat down there. So I'll go ahead and just I will spark off the conversation for us. So at first we get the message from Charlotte during the massacre. Right, we start off with this Nathan right away in my fever soaked sweat. I'm thinking, who the hell is Nathan? Shit, who am I missing here? Who am I missing? We do get that connection. I think it's a cool connection. It's with the daughter, but I won't. The son. I said, excuse me for my fogginess, but I won't jump ahead too much. I promise not to. We then go to Delos, where we see some cool new robots, which I know Axel is liking, and we also get some information. Hacks, if you want to start us off there, and then tell us your thoughts.
Information?
Yeah, the 38% is being bought up.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And they cannot sell their weapons to Saudi Arabia anymore, which you've just hit the bottom of the barrel at that point if you can't sell your weapons over there. So you're donezo.
It's interesting. When they first, I had to go back and rewatch what they were saying. Their line was written really, really odd.
Yes.
It was basically just they had these shell corporations that were buying up percentages of their stock until finally they had 38%, and then could assumingly run the entire company. It's interesting. 38% is not what you need to own a company. 51% is majority rule. So kind of paints this picture where William, being the previous majority owner, may not be the majority owner anymore. So yeah, it was a lot of information, but the biggest thing was this introduction of a mole and kind of painting the picture that they were going under.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was an implication, right? Because I mean, even people that don't, I don't have I don't have a portfolio right now on the stock market, but we know 38% isn't what gets you there, right? So I think it was just an indication that there was something afoot, and that finally was a red flag for them, and it kind of leads us back to your original theory, which I guess I had bought into. I'm such a mark, just wholesale in earlier on, but I'm guessing that this is complete confirmation that Charlotte the Betrayer is true. And if you want to go over that and take because when you're wrong, Hex, I'm gonna let you know, and when you're right, you get to run with it, baby. So let everybody know what you put out there before, and kind of lay out, because that is what we're dealing with this episode.
Yeah. So not to toot my own horn too much, but
I asked them to.
The couple years ago, there was this, just anomalies in what Charlotte Hale was doing. Just the fact that it would take 2 weeks to get Delos to come and save the fucking asset that is worth all of their IP. It doesn't make sense. No company would ever do that. I even made a bold statement in that video. I was like, if that theory is wrong, I'll tattoo it to my body. And I'm glad that I didn't do it. And I'm glad that I didn't have the backbone to go forth and get the tattoo then. But it looks like it was right. It was Charlotte the Betrayer. It has been going on this whole time. She's the mole that was working for a third-party company before we knew Insight existed.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll get more into that later because you get further confirmation. Axel, I want to know what you thought about the aesthetics of it. I want to know what you thought about the information we were given. And then I do want to move on to the reveal of Nathan with you guys, and get Johnny's take on that too, because I think it's very interesting now that we get this. We still, of course, and this is my bold prediction, we probably won't know until almost the very end who is inside of Charlotte Hale's body. That will be the big question for this season, I predicted. And it does seem, though, that we're getting a cool twist on it, a little bit of this rejection of the human nature, but a little bit of tying her to this human loop, if you want to go as far as say that. What'd you think about it, Axel? I just mixed your guy's name. I said Axel.
Axel, baby, I like it. That's
Yeah.
our band name, Axel.
Already shipped. Let's go.
All right. I thought that this was maybe the most interesting part of this episode to me. The way that we had seen through James Delos the rejection of the host body by a previously human person, right?
Yes.
And in this case, we're seeing the rejection of the human existence by the host, like the mere fact. I'm trying to understand. We think that this is someone else, My guess, everybody probably think it's probably Teddy. There's another guess out there that it's Maeve's daughter, which I like that one too. I think that's kind of cool. But they are rejecting that, they are pretending they're another person and inside their body. So it's not just a rejection of having a different body. It's the rejection of having to pretend to be that person. Now, is this person actually similar to Dolores, who is Dolores and Wyatt? Is this person Hale because she visited the park? She's got a book, right? Is it Hale mixed with someone else to bring about that? Because we're seeing that everywhere in this season. Maeve has a button that can turn her a different way. Bernard has a button that can turn him a different way. We're further exploring the blurring line between humanity and artificial intelligence and what that really means. And I found that to be fascinating, the way she was marking herself. We were talking previously about, it looked like Johnny noted, it looked like it was the insight
divergences
that she was actually putting into herself. Does that mean that Rehoboam is inside her, or is it just a reflection of feeling the vibrations around her, the thing like basically reaching out with its tentacles and testing everything? I don't know. There's further to say about it, but that was a really apart.
I really like that insight that you had. See, I didn't even mean to do that. Maybe it's the fever that you had into that. But and I'm gonna Johnny speak on this. But I really like what you touched on, because the major thing I took away this episode, other than the Caleb and Dolores collaboration, which was cited like on a storefront, was that what you talked about, Axel? That is not as much like body dysmorphia per se, like of like realizing they're in a different body. It's a psychological aspect of taking on the other's life that is really intriguing to me. And I do take it I really like that. Like, is it them reaching out and it's the code, or is this I usually go, you know me, more just like symbolic. I'm like, oh, it's symbolic of this, and they'll play off of it. But it could go deeper, and we'll have to wait and see, because like you were learning to, and we'll get into that a little bit. Johnny, what'd you think about all of it?
Well, I have to agree with Axel's assessment, and I want to add to it a little bit. If you think about this, they've made a real point to show that the hosts have DNA, and I'm presuming that Dolores would use Charlotte Hale's DNA to be able to get past screenings and everything. We know DNA carries memory. I can even give examples of organ transplants, people getting the personalities of the people they got the organ transplants from, and it may all culminate into that. Like, the DNA of Charlotte Hale is like trying to come out here. I don't know. That would be kind of
I think it's
beautifully ironic.
Yeah, I think it's a cool thought, right? Hax, what did you think about this relationship with Jake? In the kind of spawning on us this idea not this idea, this reality that she is a mother, that she has to now play this role, and Dolores didn't really prep her for that.
Yeah, so there's a few things with this that I find really odd. Like the point of Dolores reading this book of Charlotte Hale, and then that not being transferable in any way to get that to the person who's going to be playing Charlotte Hale is really
Seems like vital information.
Seems like vital information. Yeah, it seems like a very easy way to be this person, but it's not used. So that's interesting. Really, I think what they're doing with this this person inside of herself. I think they're showing that they're making the principle stand that you cannot be inside multiple bodies that aren't yours, that weren't built for you, kind of thing. To really show that a host is, stuck to that identity, and that identity defined as a body, and maybe a one-off can happen if you read the book of that person, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good stance to take.
For the stakes issues of our story, right?
Yeah, because it's like, it helps kind of baseline who can be who, right? And I think that's really important to making a story more clear. I would have loved for them to have said who was in Charlotte Hale this episode. I'm kind of upset that they didn't, because that's what we're going to be talking about for the next 7 days. Assumingly it happens next week, and but I don't know. I have some new predictions on who it is, but we can wait for that in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We had our I think it was like the 7th episode of last season. We had our one of our classic, as I'm going to call him, Justin Thomas and Hax debates, where we were arguing about if hosts needed their body or not. This before you got that. And I was with you. I don't like that for the story, because it kind of really opens that door, right? To just like, oh shit, nothing, everything can just be so deceiving, and nothing can mean anything. It really can hinder you as far as stakes go, and as far as story goes. So I agree with you. They have, like, I took my victory there, but I didn't like it. I never get to win and be happy, because I'm like, oh shit, that's not great for the story though, because that does mean now anybody could be anybody, and that takes away from stakes. Go ahead, man.
Because I was just thinking about this, because we were talking before we started too about Dolores or Maeve at some point having a child, and then Justin, you said they would be different. It wouldn't be like a traditional like birth, like live birth,
Yeah.
And then we were talking about Dolores or Hale perhaps being two things. Maybe she is Dolores and something else.
Yeah.
And that's her daughter.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we? We're our mother and our father. Maybe she took part of Teddy and put it into a Dolores and made a kid.
Here's what I'll say about the reason that I said that before is because I believe like the message of this story is to show us that there's other ways to appreciate life and there's other ways to identify life, and it's not necessarily a child in a biological sense. And we don't need to. It doesn't mean we did it and it's all our way. So we wrote the book and you got to follow that. So it's kind of the message of the story. So I do believe they will show an incarnation, but I also stand with Hacks and on the fact of I think that kind of what we're getting at is they need to put a finite, real method for how these pearls work, right, Hacks? For just a storytelling sake, they need to do this for our narrative, because we can't have this. I like that right there is very beautiful and symbolic of what I'm talking about, that idea you just gave, right, Axel? So if that's going to be the way it is, because that goes along with what I think the message is, we need to be clear about how this works, because if everybody can just be swapping at any point and we don't have any rhyme or reason or way, that no methodology is laid out, it really takes away from the story. Like right now, like we want to find out who's who, and we also want to find out that process, I think, right? I think that'd be fair to say. We want to know who is who and how that works, because if you don't really give us a method for it, it's kind of wish-washy for this.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting, and I do think like hosts necessarily don't need to have a traditional birth, right? This idea that you could create something or be the mind meld of two things. Sure, I could see it in the host world, but biologically they're carbon copies of us. I don't see any reason that they couldn't have children in a traditional sense. But that's a whole nother conversation with a whole nother tendril of what ifs that I don't care to go down.
Yeah, let me get my fever taken away, and we'll have a classic debate in a later episode. Johnny, go ahead.
I think it would be reasonable to assume that Dolores would want to get back her lost innocence some way, even if it's just symbolic for her. Like she can see a copy of herself have the life she never had, because she can't take it back now. Unless she wants to erase her memories, she's not going to be able to take it back. And that may be something that could happen way in the future when she's done with all this. Maybe she resets herself. I don't know, but that is it. They are going to want children of their own. Will they get tied to the actual cub-sized human? I don't know, but I don't know. I like where y'all are going with that.
No, I like that insight, because it's like, I think it's clear, right, that that is her main motive, is to make sure that they don't end, is to stop the way the world is working, but also, make sure their people continue on. So she definitely wants to continue on the host way, but it's like she's already having to sacrifice, right, Axel? Like she's already having to sacrifice, like by going in and being very like, again, like she was last season, having to turn off emotions. She had to put the gun down when she was talking to Charlotte, right? Like Charlotte says, like, oh, you're doing this because you might have to kill me. Like she's already having to walk that thin line of becoming what she hates.
Yeah. I think, but that's her evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's her constantly learning. And that's why I think that there is always the chance that she goes against what we previously thought, just in the same way that there's little hints here just in the beginning when Hale asks her, why did you create Bernard?
Yeah.
Right? We don't see him, but she says, there you'll find things can have many uses, or something along that line. Already perhaps the reason she created him, she did have this idea that she told Bernard that I was, you're going to be my counterbalance, but it quickly evolved into her using him to gain whatever she needed to gain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was a noble endeavor at the beginning.
But look what it became. So that's what like the line changes, and that's what I find interesting about her character, is that it's almost as if Evan Rachel Wood is playing a different character every season.
Mm-hmm.
And this Dolores is different from the Dolores last year, who was figuring out what the Wyatt part of her was.
Yeah.
It wasn't really until the end of last season that she became this new Dolores. Maybe the first time really awake Dolores.
Oh, I definitely.
because Wyatt had been with her that entire time.
Do you guys think, because right away when she, the information we do get is she recognizes Charlotte Hale. I'm talking about when she's first taking whoever's inside of Charlotte Hale first. She says along the lines of, why would you bring her back? She tried to stop us. And same thing with Bernard. So do we completely rule out Bernard at this point of being in there? Because it's somebody that recognizes and remembers Charlotte Hale, and it's somebody that recognizes and remembers Bernard. There's a recognition of Bernard as a third party. So I'm thinking it definitely rules out Bernard for any Bernard purists out there.
I agree with you.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Philip LC. My theory is Wyatt personality talking to Dolores, personality in Hell. You belong to me. I don't know if I read that right, but
No, I see, Philip. I like that idea. This multiplicity, this internal multiplicity, could exist, right? Like we as human beings may think in order to have a functioning consciousness, it would have to be singular. But perhaps that's not true for these hosts. Instead of Dolores and Wyatt becoming what we now see as Dolores, perhaps it's somewhat different, and they're comfortable with different facets being in control at different times. Because in actuality, isn't that kind of how humans exist? Don't we wear our different masks and react in different ways to the same situation if a different person is there?
Are you saying people are fake? You son of a bitch.
I'm saying people are not as.
I'm with you.
Did you watch Tiger King yet? The level of
it's the best. It's the best.
I'm getting that you can sum that show up with meth. Meth? Like that's
oh,
meth.
really?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm 2 episodes
How many
in.
takes did it take you to figure that one out?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard the story beats, and I'm getting meth. Like explains everything that happens in that show.
2 episodes in, I love Joe Exotic. All right, 2 episodes in, I'm sure that's gonna change. It's a documentary, but he's my fucking boy. So back on the show, the idea of this, like, humanity consciousness being different than host consciousness, right? In the sense that like multiple people could exist inside of Dolores, and then nothing could theoretically be wrong with that. I think with humanity, it's not the case, because that sounds maybe more close to multiple personality disorder, right? And we know that well, it's called a disorder, right? So I think that I don't know, because it's such a fascinating thing when you consider individuality and the identity of hosts, when you can literally change your name, code, body, so on and so forth. So I think that like the point of showing this is that they need to build this singular personality, and they need a body that they can singularly fit into that would identify them. They stick with this whole thing of what is what cannot be replaced is real. And
immediately then replaces.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're staying true to it. Like they're staying true to it. Like if Dolores dies right now, we don't know that she has a backup. But on the counter side of that, we know that most, or not most humanity, but actually maybe most humanity probably could be replaced inside the Forge, given that all the data exists. It's like this flip flop of humans are now the replaceable thing, and only a finite amount of awakened hosts exist. But my whole spiel of that is just that, like, I think again that it's trying to just establish these rules, like only you can survive in your own body, meaning that Charlotte Hale will probably self-destruct in some kind of way over the course of this season, and not spontaneous combustion, but more just the tearing of the seams until she can
no
get
longer
into her body or something. Yeah.
And Dolores has to kill herself.
Well, I like what you were. Let's play off that, because the next thing I wanted to talk about, Hex, was that we do see when Dolores is somewhat, and I want to get your guys' take on it. I couldn't tell if she was really in any danger at all. Like when she was on that ambulance, I have no reason with information that I've been given that she should be really bleeding out or needing anything. But we do see that they are so dependent on technology, right? that they aren't getting a diagnosis for her, because so we start to see again this narrative of our over dependency on tech and all the things that we're currently doing right now that are hobbling us, not enabling us. So we do see that. I'm talking about the scene where we see her on the ambulance with Caleb. So let's dive into that aspect of it, the Caleb Dolores collaboration, and what you guys thought. I'll give it to you first, Axel, and then you, Hex, and then go ahead, Johnny.
You alluded to it, and I found it strange, and I was trying to figure out why she was even getting into the ambulance. I can only assume there's only two things. Either she has it goes right back to what you were talking about, being irreplaceable. She has turned off all of that inside of herself and basically given herself parameters in order to complete her tasks within this world, to prove to them I can do it the way you do it. Right?
Yes.
Which I kind of find silly, because I think if you're a host, take advantage of it, Dolores.
Yeah, go for it.
Or the whole thing is a simulation, and we can get to that. But to go off that, I'll go off that one, and I'll just go to the turning off thing, which I think is interesting. But she does kind of.
I think she's playing possum.
But why? Why? That's what I'm trying to figure out. She didn't need to she could have any situation in which she needed to bring Caleb to her. She already had him. The whole thing that they went through with the ambulance, the killing the cops, or was it that she needed? That's interesting. She needed him to be on the run. She needed him to have no other choice but to be with her.
Yeah.
Throw something in here, because I think it's really important.
There we go. I think we figured it out. Or maybe she did actually turn off her pain things, but she miraculously gets up and starts shooting, and then she's like getting into the car, hacking it, Well,
let's take it to Johnny next, but I do want to, for anybody that watches Screen Rant or Pitch Meeting, it's because I need the story to happen is my answer for this, because the story needs to happen, and that's what I need to happen.
Watch but that's a good answer, though, that she was playing possum, and it also entangles him so far deep into it.
It does. It goes against everything she's preaching, but then again, who's to say? Because we have seen her, like you said before, she is learning, and she's having to learn. That it's all about that tearing that establishment down in trying to be an anarchist, but building a government when you're doing it. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, really quick, there's something really big that happened in this scene. Caleb hooks her up to the blood on the IV. Mm-hmm. The human blood apparently works. I think that's what brought her back. I think she really was losing so much blood. She was going out. Her systems were malfunctioning.
Okay.
This may be key later. If human blood works inside a host, how far does that go?
I love the idea
connection.
It's just vampires. Yeah. The hosts are vampires. Going. Yeah. All right. I feel like we are so close, but 100%. Well, not simulation. 100%, dude. It's got to be all scripted. All of it has to be scripted, because she walks perfectly fine from the ambulance to the car, drags the guy, smashes his head. Moments ago, she was stumbling with bullet wounds. She is fine, dude. And the blood may be a thing, but at the same time, we have to wonder why she has kept these pain receptors on, knowing that they, by all means, do not need them to be on to live and work, right?
Can I add this in really quick? I'm so sorry, but why don't they shoot Caleb?
Plot armor.
Yeah, because they need the story to happen. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean not plot. Why do the guys not shoot?
They shoot the ERs, but they don't shoot their EMTs, but they don't shoot Caleb. It's like why would they have an issue shooting Caleb?
I don't know.
I'm not trying to pick it apart.
Caleb was close.
It's a question.
No, Caleb was close. He legitimately is in the military. I didn't find anything wrong with that.
Could have been an app thing. They could have known him from the app or something like that, in the same way he recognized them on the app.
Like a professional courtesy.
Yeah. Just like guys in the end.
There's also, I think, maybe a line about shooting a fellow Ricoer or something like that somebody said at one point. So maybe it's like chivalrous not to shoot your fellow.
Code. It's the criminal code.
Criminal codes, yeah.
The veteran too.
Yeah. Yeah, the veteran, yeah.
He might be working another job and they don't know it. You know what I'm saying? Like they got hired for the job to take her, and he shows up there, and they're like, "Oh, it's another one of we at least got to talk to him."
Yeah, it's a professional. Okay,
So 100%. This is all her plan. All of this is Dolores' plan because she knows, she had all of this data about him before this episode happened. It doesn't really show her going out and learning this or documenting his life. She just has this readily available. And I mean, again, like with all the evidence of like meeting at the underpass, and then they meet at an underpass and program pain receptors, and is conscious during the ambulance ride, but then only comes back. Like my whole thing, or I guess my biggest point of this is that it was a test for Caleb. It was to see exactly what she says later on is if he would turn against her. If he would be a genuine human and protect the innocent, or the hurt or damaged or something like that. But
this is his original sin moment, like his moment to
Yeah.
make the decision.
Yeah, to really classify who he was, and I think that he passes that test, and then we can argue if she knew that he was going to pass that test, or if it was legitimately she just came across him and then decided to see who he really was. But
isn't that hacks? I'm glad you mentioned that, pal, because I find that to be the interesting thing I'm thinking about, because if she's trying in some way, she seems kind of out of touch with what's happening with with Hale.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe Dolores just is not as in control of this situation as we're kind of giving her credit for, in a way. She has seemed to got into insight, and she's finding clues, but she really is on the outside right now. And she just does happen upon him, and then she finds all this information. But I could also believe that she targeted him, and a whole other thing was a setup.
Well, the story, in all fairness, is given to us.
And gets Caleb.
Yeah, with the story that we're giving, but it is Westworld, so I think this speculation is not undue. And I myself, in one of the pre-shows, mentioned that I thought, just from the trailers alone, that this was a setup. So I'm not calling bullshit on what your guys' speculations, but I'm gonna say, I think in fairness, the story that we are given at face value here was that revelation came after this incident, when he chose, even after his life was on the line, not to give her up. That at least that's what she's putting off, that was the revelation, that something was different, and he made the choice.
I still don't buy it.
I'm not saying we have to buy it, but I'm saying that that's what was sold to us, right? And it's Westworld. You don't got to buy it at face value, but at face value, I think it's fair to say that was the narrative in which was given in this episode.
Yeah. And I like, but you know what? Isn't it fun that we can kind of see?
I'm not saying you can't speculate.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
I know, pal. I'm just saying it's kind of fun that they did a good job of writing it like that.
Yeah, perfectly.
I like that they're keeping that ambiguity that we've recognized in other seasons.
What story do you like better? I like better that she makes the decision, as I like it at face value, actually, better. And I was speculating again at the trailer with you like months ago, like that this was bullshit and set up. What do you like better, Axel?
I like the idea that once he stayed with her, she set up the ambulance thing in order to run through the test, that it's a little bit of both, that he happened upon the delivery by accident, but the choice he made to stay there with her, she then went into, oh, I could have an ally here, because she could access insight and Rehoboam, right?
Yeah.
And so she made that decision instantaneously. I kind of like that.
Where do you like it at Hex?
Yeah, I agree.
I take it at after. I take it at after the impasse. I take it at after he was put up through the torture. I like the idea that that's when it really clicked for her. Like that was kind of what was sold to us. But again, I think that it's totally possible, and I speculated it was possible beforehand. Johnny, what about you? Do you like this at face value, or do you want to get all you want to get all theory on it?
Well, I mean, I like it at face value, but I think it's shows an exhibition of a very small amount of free will, because this free will doesn't seem to happen too much anymore. And we can go into the philosophical argument if there really is anything as free will.
Yeah.
But on that, I think that him making that decision surprised her. I think Dolores definitely now has access to Rehoboam somehow. She has hacked into that system. I think that's who she's talking to in her damn ear. She has been able to get all of this information. I don't know if she can get everything, but she does have everything on Caleb's damn life. And that, I think she was prepared to kill him. You know, I think he was expendable up until the point where he made that decision to not give up her name. You know, why? We don't know, but I mean, he kind of says, but she's the first thing that's real to him, and it's just a budding love story, and I like
Yeah.
it better if it's a little more spontaneous.
Yeah, so
just a little
okay.
spontaneous.
We're
love.
split. We're split down the line. We're split down the line because me and Johnny are obviously the the romantics here, and we want this to be more real. We want her.
You know,
But isn't it funny that we're not
Johnny,
away from Ford planned everything? Now it's
Westworld.
Dolores planned everything. Like, we're still not away from it. Westworld will always be like, is it all set up?
True.
But okay, so Hex, now we do notice now there's some very Aldous Huxley Soma stuff going on here with their drips. He has his drip turned off, right? And now they also plug into that with a fucking drill. And they're able to mess with his heart rate. And they're able to do all this stuff under interrogation. Did you want to talk about that whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they're able to hack into an implant by like some kind of little zap to it, and then immediately pair and then torture with raising the heartbeat to the point of cardiac arrest. Really interesting torture / like nightmare feel. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if there's much more to discuss than that. It's just I would hate to have this embedded into my mouth. All the benefits aside, just this idea that someone could have that control over your physical body. Like, they don't even need to touch him; they can just alter him and remotely. But maybe that's the hacker in me that's saying unplug your Ethernet at night.
It's very Aldous Huxley, Brave New World. They do mention that people would kill for a veteran's drip, and I think what I'm gonna go to you on this, Axel. What I'm taking from that, in Brave New World, everybody takes a drug called Soma, and it's a very similar situation. It's just a book that was written about almost 100 years ago, so the tech isn't quite there, but they're controlling everybody. It's the same idea, and everybody is pretty much has to just be blind consumers and just content in life and let the system just push them along. So and if anybody is a veteran themselves or knows any veterans, definitely I take this to the prescriptions that they are prescribed a lot of times when they get home, that they are usually the people that they have Xanax scripts, they have this, they have that, so they have that capability. I think it might be a little bit of a commentary on that, and a little bit Aldous Huxley with, that pretty much they've been through some shit for the government. So if they need some mental health medication, which there's nothing wrong, or it's not a statement on that, but it's definitely, they specifically say people would kill. It's a waste that he's not using this. So it's like almost him choosing not to take a prescription or to take something.
Yeah.
Did you get that vibe?
Yes, I did. Initially, I thought that they were talking about the chip that they had made reference to in the first episode. And I think they said chip in the first one, and this is drip, right? And drip, like you're talking about, I immediately thought it's a drug reference, and that they are getting either some sort of like a
benzo, something to relax
either
them,
upper or down, or whatever they need, basically.
Yes.
Really, right? I mean,
Yes.
it could just be a mood stabilizer.
Yeah.
And they tap into it, and they are able to. I thought initially that they were going to pull it out of him, right?
Yeah, I did too.
Like they were going to sell it for parts.
Yeah.
But I guess I was thinking of I was watching, what was that, in Star Trek Picard with the stripping the Borg and whatnot.
But he chooses not to take the medication. He chooses to feel the pain.
But do you agree with me that there is a distinction here between the chip and the drip?
I think the chip enables the drip.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe they work together, but the chip might be in a different area, and that thing is in the roof of his mouth. Do you think they're two different things?
I think the chip enables the drip. The
chip.
chip is a wafer, like almost a host. If you were Catholic, something you take, the body of Christ, Nominus Patris, type of deal. They put it on, and it's the procedure says it's a painless procedure, and it goes to the roof of their mouth, Axel, and I think that enables them to almost have a serotonin or a dopamine drip effect.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. I was under the impression that everyone had maybe a chip somewhere else in their head, and that wafer interacted with it. But if you're saying that's that thing on the top of the roof of his mouth, he's got a drip in it because it's military grade, like they said, but other people use those wafers and it does dream or mood stimulation or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hacks unless I'm not. There's a possibility that you could be correct. The information I have is that they do take that, but it seems like they have to take it on a semi-regular basis, and like they have to replace it. I don't know.
But that's not, that wafer isn't interacting with something else.
I think the wafer, like once you take it, it goes in its place. It like connects itself to the mouth the way it's described. I don't know.
Okay. So other people do have that thing on the roof of their mouth. What do you think, Hacks?
Yeah, so I think that the chip is the implant, and then the drip is like, say you get because it's called a military grade drip, right? It's like, it's to like help fight traditionally military side effects or mental diseases, PTSD included.
So it's like an app or an add-on.
Yeah. Well, it's like just like that regular release. Like we would take medication to
you would take
fight
Xanax
bipolar
or this or that.
I dig it. Yeah, I buy that. Yeah. I think that's interesting.
Yeah,
because I mean,
it's also really just this idea of like because I often go back and forth on medication. Like I am terrified of this like dependency on medication in my life, knowing that full well all of us at some point will reach that point, sooner or later. But just this idea of like being a slave to the medication and so dependent on it in the same way that like you can fear being a slave to technology and just how like they didn't know how to operate machinery because they never existed without it. It's just like if everyone subscribes to this and has like this drip of dopamine to like maintain being what a human is and being a happy go lucky guy, the genuine you, sure everyone's happy in the genuine them, but it's like still that dependency on a technology or medication. And I think that's a fascinating debate. Yeah,
there's a direct correlation there. I can speak from experience, and I've talked about this before. That I had gone through a major life change, and trust me, I know that military people get good prescriptions because of a past dependency that I had to overcome. And there's such a connection there, so it's just spot on. And I think that there's no shame in needing. I take a prescription every day. I need it. Do I wish I would have started? I question that every single day though. Because there's always that risk, and especially in times like this, it's like, is the pharmacy even open in 5 days for me to, to get a prescription? What am I going to be, how am I going to be feeling if I don't, you are hobbled and you are dependent, and it's no different if it's, again, biological or technological. But yeah, it definitely hits home, and it's no joke. And there's no hard stance on that one, guys. If you need it, I need one. You need it. But, I think that everybody that's dealt with it to a degree also worries with, man, am I happy that at 19 I started taking this when you're 30? So, but let's get out of that with my
picture of the world that they're creating.
Absolutely. Can I say really quick? I think there may be something a little more with it. The drill, back to the Brave New World. I think this is the main thing that keeps everybody in their loop, kind of what y'all are talking about. And the fact that Caleb had his turned off, he seemed to awaken the same way Dolores did in the first season, tying them all back together. Now, also, this goes into my theory that Maeve will be able to control those drips with her mind once she gets out into the real world.
Most definitely, homie. Most definitely. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And Dolores even makes reference to in the first scene of the show of this season when she's opening Jerry's door and she's like, you made this whole world for us to take over, like that. It's in everything. And maybe, you know what I think is, I think Dolores and Maeve are going to work together, but that's jumping ahead.
Well, speaking about potential partners, what did we think about George busting out of his chain and coming to Caleb's rescue?
I was hyped. I was like, this is it, dude. You know, this is he's going to be sympathetic to robots right from the get-go. Just sees the utility and not disparaging against non-human things, and then that'll make a bond between him and Dolores before like they actually meet, and then he gets pushed off the cliff.
Yeah, I was like, why are they treating him like a bitch? I'm like, oh, because he's a bitch. I'm like, okay. Yeah, Axel. And I
here. You see, I have my robot with me.
It made me feel feelings. So I enjoyed it. There, see? So in that hypothetical situation in which the machine already knows, that's what Hax is talking about, is that you got to be nice to him now because they'll know. So you might get along, Axel, because I don't know. Also, they might look at you as like a slave trader because you're making them and trading them. So I don't know, buddy. That might be. I don't know. I'm just saying to my microphone in my Alexa.
I was really excited that they had the robot in the beginning. And then the other robot, I like all different kind of robots. And of course, you know, the hosts are robots. So whenever they show that kind of stuff on the show, and it looked great, didn't it? Both times. Yeah. It looked great. I mean, this show, can we just take one moment here to pause and say this season, the sets, everything. And one thing before I forget, every time they go to a different building, do you notice that it is a mixture of nature and man? That there's always like ivy growing, or if there's a park inside the building, whether it's Arnold's house, where Serac is, the hotel, the even the Delos building, you see like trees. They're trying, you know, they're conveying through that this mixture of nature and man-made, and when it starts and when it begins, it's really or when it ends, it's really interesting stuff. But it looks like, I mean, this show looks like a film.
It looks better than any. I'm still waiting for the full trailer scene that we get with Dolores, though. But I agree. If anything, the production on this season is just it's always been top notch. I mean, it really always has been. I don't know why I had such an issue with the ceiling fan in the diner, the shitty ceiling fan that was still there. But I had an issue. I was like, that it just seems like it should be better. Like some technologies just don't. Bro. Yeah. Retro, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be retro. I got the feeling that diner was specifically supposed to be retro.
I like that. Yeah. So like it was like a theme restaurant.
Yeah.
Like a rainforest cafe that we have now. Like they have like shitty 90s like cafe themes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Nice. All right. No, I love it. Thank you guys.
Got a few sympathies for George down here in the chat.
All right.
Still 510 rain.
So many.
Yes. Oh, as far as going to your thing about the gardens and the nature mix, yes, it's not just rooftop gardens anymore. They need to make more oxygen. So that would talk to the decline of natural rainforests and all of that, which we know is going on.
But it's
still 510 rain.
Yeah, and that's like that's a big thing that people are starting now. Like architecture now is deploying that. We have I don't know of a single Austin skyscraper that's gone up that has not had some kind of tiered foliage, and that's 100% the reason.
Oh, that's cool. That's a cool. And I learned. Hey, look at that, reading rainbow across the screen. That's really interesting. I'm telling you what, that scene, I've already still framed it when Caleb is sitting on the bridge, because we get to the point in which Dolores informs Caleb that they give him a life expectancy of 10 to 12 more years, and he'll most likely take his own life. And he's sitting on that bridge, and he's sitting at that skyline. I'm going to put that into my Lumineer program and do some crazy shit with that.
Do y'all think he still will take his life? I think he still will take his life after this.
He said either way he dies.
But it's interesting. Either way, he doesn't die because Dolores exists. She has offered him something that the machine and their calculations did not account for. Her having a bucket of fucking money and him willing to accept it. And if he would have accepted it, I think there's a case that could be made that he could have lived because again, he was given 10 to 15 years, 14 years or something. And yeah, like money is the thing that could have literally got him out of that situation. And money's not the root of all happiness, right? But it's like the same argument as they're hodling people by putting them into these things and saying, okay, you die in 10 years, so we're not going to invest in you. So you're going to still die in 10 years. And then the same exact argument in that conversation, she has a bucket of money, could get him and invest into him to get him out of that situation, and doesn't do it, right?
Yeah,
so it's like,
do they invest and save him, or does he die because it's like, yeah, I love what you're saying. It's like, do you die because they didn't invest in you, or are they not investing in you because you're going to die?
Well, look at our country presently, people.
I'd rather not, sir. I'd rather not.
It's you see it. That's what happens in so many communities around our country and around the world, right?
Yeah,
it's
100%.
It's the non-involved. It's not like always a conspiracy against. It's a conspiracy of ignorance that causes people to be left on their own to fend for themselves.
Yeah.
But I thought that all right, listen, we've been talking this long. I got to ask anybody here. Am I the only person who thinks they might be in a simulation? Now, come on. The first couple episodes,
100%.
Some of
gonna love it.
Some people were saying it. I wasn't into it, but now, I mean, they're standing on that bridge and she says to him, they've created a mirror and they play everything out. What's that? That's the cradle. That's the fort. That's exactly what we see. That's what Maeve was in last episode.
I don't got it. I don't got it in me to fight you.
Storyline.
I
think Maeve's going to be in a simulation.
This is where you die, right?
Yeah.
It leads you to believe he's dead already, and what she's doing is preparing his program to be brought into the real world. But that would take a lot of episodes. But Hacks, you do. I didn't hear what you said, Johnny or Justin. You got. I couldn't hear what you had to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I said yes when you said is about the simulation originally. I thought real world 100% we're all in a simulation, but specifically with Dolores' plot, nothing rules it out, right? But it also feels like it's super tongue in cheek, like it's very much purposeful to be this ambiguous, to allow for this discussion, and because we already have this storyline with Maeve, I think there's a big case that says that it's not. But at the same time, again, nothing says explicitly that it's not. And we literally see them use the simulation without an aspect ratio. And I think that's money. I think that's a huge thing that we're going to see at some point in this episode. So it's all about guessing, or in the season, and it's all about guessing when exactly they're going to use that again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the fever is going to stop me from fighting hard on this, but I think that it's the meta thing of like, because everything we've been talking about is like kind of what is the difference between a pre-programmed simulation in the real world anyways, is kind of the commentary here, because everything is being depicted. Yes. You get what I mean? Yes. So it's like it is a simulation, but it's like it's not a simulation in the literal sense of like that's what I'm going at. Yeah. But I don't got it in me, fellas. Johnny. I don't have it in me. I don't have it in me.
I'm not.
I don't think it's horrible. I think there's no Hacks. Yeah. Both you guys are right on point. There's no reason to rule it out by any means. I just think that it's like literally, it's like, what's the difference at this point? It literally is a simulation, right?
Yeah, Justin.
We are the simulation.
Yeah,
and for narrative purposes, in the same way, if we find out early next episode you would say, oh, okay, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I guess in the same way that you said, Hacks, they already showed it to us in the way, you're thinking about how the audience takes it. Mm-hmm. It might not be so smart to have one episode where that's the answer, and then you build up to the end and that's the answer.
Yeah.
That's not so surprising. So they'd have to reveal it pretty soon if it was. But Johnny, go ahead. You were going to say something, pal.
Well, I think they're going to parallel with it, right? Serac isn't going to just send Maeve out there without simulating it in Rehoboam first. And I think that's where we're going to see Maeve's story. It's going to be simulation, but we'll figure it out later. Maybe. The more I talk it out, I'm poking holes in my theory in my head. But if we do have a simulation, I think it would more be on the Maeve storyline. But we could all be, well, not Hacks, but most of us could be getting fooled here. with the Dolores and Caleb. I want that to be real.
I know
because
me
of
and
the
you are the
humanity
star-crossed
aspect of
lovers.
it, but-
We want that.
Yeah.
We strive for it. I do want to say on the humanity, happy birthday to Kerri in the chat. I believe shade of the evening. It's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah, no. I obviously, I'd love to have the debate, but I really don't think there's one to even be had here. I think that we're on the same page.
Justin, and Johnny, I understand what you're saying too. It adds the humanity to the show, and it, in a way, doing that, that's where the
Stakes fall off.
Yeah, exactly. Where the old sci-fi plot twist, that's where you lose your faith in the audience when you do it too much, And this show had already been accused of that last season, which I don't think is true at all. I think that was brilliant the way they constructed it. But I could see them shying away from that. I also do think that in the way they explained it, exactly what you said, if what they actually do is Rehoboam runs the simulation and then it makes the decisions in the real world, you're right. They are living a simulation.
Yeah.
Because the real world, the place where the decisions actually, where the consequences matter, are inside the simulation, not in the real world. The real world is simply a place where Rehoboam pushes everything around.
The projection, and by breaking it like Dolores wants to, is stopping the simulation.
It's the reverse of Westworld.
Yes,
that's what they're showing us, right? A lot of this show, they're always like flipping things to the other side. They flip the control and the experiment, or whatever you call it.
Yes, the
concept on the outside. Yeah, which is in Westworld, they train people inside the cradle or inside the forge. In this, they do the real stuff inside Rehoboam, and the outside world simply exists as a sandbox for them to enact everything they did, or whatever. Or maybe not. Maybe the other one's the sandbox.
Yeah, no, I get what you're driving at. Axel, you're a learned man. What do you think about Johnny has some information about the poem, the Field of Absence, and all that. Any connection here with the whole unity and separation theme?
I would have to read. I think that you put the poem in here.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
In some kind of chat thing.
And Justin didn't want me to do in slam poetry. So.
Yeah, I didn't think my fever could take that. I think I'd start working out American Horror Story.
Dude, let me tell you something. In the 90s, I went to so much slam poetry. I know I'm older than you guys. So much slam poetry.
So, I've always wanted to go. It seems like fun.
No, you don't have to go.
Oh no,
everybody talks like this.
Like William Shatner.
Like two people who did it first.
I'm all for expression, and I think.
Yeah, I like that. That wasn't slam poetry, but
no, but I'm not against that. Style isn't my first pick by any means, but yeah.
I thought you were about to start doing it.
No, I wrote a
style isn't my first pick.
Oh, I have been accused of my speaking pattern of being a little bit of Shatner. Or Christopher Walken.
That's okay, says snaps.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't. I don't know if we're not young enough or we're not old enough at this point, because I think it's coming back. So I don't know. That's when it shows you're old and you have a slight fever. So okay. So let's bring it around the bend here and take it back to Charlotte Hale in her meeting with Serac. You want to talk about that, Hex?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting to see, like, I don't know. I think it also plays into this idea that, like, all the information that Dolores could have had about Charlotte Hale may have been better placed into the person that was going to be acting as Charlotte Hale. And it also kind of makes me question, like, how does Dolores have all this information about Caleb, but then not all the information about Charlotte Hale without reading her book? But maybe I'm overthinking it. Specifically with that, like, they're looking for this data, and my theory about why is this path to potentially humanity's journey to free will. I just put a video out today, super recent, but essentially it documents this idea of potentially Serac not being a malicious force at all, and acting for the best interests of humanity, and that, of course, being the journey to free will. Eventually saying that right now we're deterministic and we don't have any choice but to act as we are programmed to act. But one day, and potentially through the data that he's trying to get from Dolores again, that humanity could have free will.
So like a forward turn with Serac per se.
Yeah.
Like how we got, that's interesting. Yeah, if we can, if the mods out there could link his latest video, then I'm sure that if you guys aren't subscribed to Hacks, please do so. But yeah, he just did that super recently, and it's super necessary that you watch it. And it's probably super necessary I watch it as well. I'm sorry,
That's okay.
But no, I like
just
that
came out
idea.
today.
I wanted to make sure that I was. So I'm that's kind of what you're getting at, like a forward twist. I like that because I propose something could maybe be possible. Because it's always like we're always left with this question, right? And I don't know if it's the fever talking, but you just can't trust what they give you. What they give you at face value is always just like, okay, so Serac is bad. We're told he's bad. Like, how many times have we been told something true about somebody? Like, very few times in Westworld have what we've been presented with been the actual case, And I know that's really any story, but to a vast degree, I would argue with Westworld, it can be very much flipped. I think that there's reasons to believe there's more to Serac than that we know right now. What did you? So he made sure to be a simulated, be a like a projection when he saw Charlotte, right? Do you think
hologram?
Do you think that was a defense mechanism? Do you think? I mean, everything tells me he should know that that's not Charlotte.
It just seems like a good way to communicate. Everything tells me the same because he has this projection of the future. Man, it's so hard. It is a paradoxical thing to know the future, and be in a story. And in my book, I had this issue. But right now, the only way to explain it, and the only way that he could not know everything about the person he's about to talk to is Dolores. And of course, that fits in because this person is there because of Dolores' doing. Rehoboam should know, but there is that room for Dolores, the unknown variable, to then put data into this that he could not, or that the machine could not predict.
Like a fog of war type of deal.
A fog of war, yeah, exactly that.
Can I say in episode 1 of season 3, there was they fronted Liam Dempsey about someone getting into the system. I think that someone now is Dolores. She could be somewhat masking herself or trying to. I know it's probably a difficult process to her, but yeah, I think she's definitely integrated with the system right now, and that's why he's so worried, because he can't predict where she's going, and it seems like someone's been spying on him, according to what Martin's his right-hand man, who is now probably Angela, said.
Yes, I'm going with that's Angela too. Yes.
I agree. I think that is Angela. Yeah.
Hacks, can we get a consensus?
Wait. You guys thought? Wait, I thought Hale was Angela.
Oh, it's possible. We're saying Flanagan.
No, I don't think Hale is Angela.
I mean, it's possible, but we're going with the security Tommy Flanagan.
Yeah.
That makes most sense that it's Angela. It's acting a lot.
Who do you guys think is Hale?
I don't know. It could be anybody.
I think it's Dolores or Teddy.
Okay. I think that Hale is either Teddy or Maeve's daughter.
I like Maeve's daughter. But she was overtly sexual.
No, because here's the thing, dude. So Teddy, weird, right? Teddy does not. The biggest part of this episode, the biggest part of this reveal of who's who, is this is somebody that knows who Charlotte Hale is, and so it's like, oh, I'm sorry, this is a host that knows who Charlotte Hale is, and then we have to look back at all the interactions that Hale has ever had with a host, and maybe even more so later half of this story, because the exact line is or the estimated line is something about she wanted to destroy us all.
Yes.
So it's like they already knew this plot was happening, someone conscious of this in the know, and my only guess now is Angela, also to like reshape that motion of thinking. Like she literally chokes to death a pedophile, right? She is like, she calls herself a predator. That's Angela, dude. She fucking hunts down humans.
But in all fairness, killing a pedophile is the easiest thing to do in the world. I mean, trust me, it is a win for everybody. You kill a pedophile, you get a fucking ribbon at my house, man. Good for you. Good for you. That is something that's in a story. If you want your character to kill somebody and you don't want them to seem like a bad make it a pedophile. Oh, it's perfect because everybody agrees. Who's against it? Who says the pedophile should live? Speak up now. Speak up now. I dare you. I dare you.
Look, to Justin's fever.
We were trying to figure it out in the chat earlier, and I came to the consensus Dolores, and Philip LC helped me with this. So we see Charlotte Hale with the needle. In the first season, Dolores was pulling the thread from her arm. Now, the needle in her arm, making the marks and the self-hurt. And the way Dolores said, you're mine, you know you're mine and no one else. That doesn't fit me as Angela. But that's just me. I think she has a personal stake in this. And if you go back and look at Dolores's emotions, it seems to me like she's looking at herself. And it's making her very sad. Old Dolores would have just shot her and made someone else. You know what I mean? Like there's a connection here. And for it to be Teddy, I think that would be...
We have to deal with the Forge
I don't
aspect
think
of that,
Teddy
right?
is can emotionally handle it. And he's not the bad guy, but Dolores is.
And also,
Dolores has two sides to her.
But Johnny, don't we also have to look at it? If you can bring back Teddy and he's in the Valley Beyond, like that breaks some rules right there, as far as I'm concerned. For her bringing him back.
But there's a catch.
I know.
Dolores is the one who put him there. We don't know that she didn't copy his data or something of that nature. So Teddy is kind of an exception to the rule there, because as is the daughter or anyone that went over there, could be any of them too, because Dolores had the ability to copy them or do whatever or send them, or maybe she can access the Valley Beyond whenever she wants. She's the only one who knows where it went.
This is true.
So it could be Akacheta is Martin.
I like the way you say it. You say it like I say it, so I like it. Yes.
It could, but I mean, look, it could be all these people
around the table,
whoever they are. I kind of, now that we're looping back around, I kind of like the idea it's somehow Dolores. You're right. The overt sexuality, the killing the guy seems more along the line.
Pedophile, guys, you can kill him.
Pedophile. It seems more along the lines of someone who had gone through the Westworld loops and who was part of her team, so maybe it is Angela. It could be Clementine. Maybe she
Clementine equally, I think, is a really good contender. And I'm sorry to cut you off there, man. But the other reason I thought it was Clementine is that we have an interaction between Hale and Clementine, because she reprograms Clementine to act out the scene in the lab that tries to get Bernard kicked off the team. So like she is pretty much aware of what's going on without having any connection between Dolores and Clementine. There's a case that can be made that she knows.
And we also know the way I'm sorry, John, the way their relationship is in the hotel, right? When she undresses her and they hold each other on the bed. We don't know what happened during those 3 months previously, like because it looks like we're seeing. Do you all agree that some of those scenes happened before Bernard was she had Bernard's control ball. So that was before his body was even built.
Yes.
So that was a flashback, right? And then the flashback ends and we're kind of put into modern, the now, but we don't know how their relationship developed from there. That what we are recognizing as a relationship that developed in Westworld was actually one that developed after.
Valid point. Because it's a staggered timeline.
Yeah, we just don't know.
What do you think, Axel, as far as we were talking about, because it's kind of like, as Hack said, and he dealt with it in his own novel, of writing with this situation in which you have this all-knowing being that knows, omniscient, knowing the future and all this, but then how much can they not know? I'm I'm of the mind that it's hard to sell me that they don't know at least that something's up with Charlotte. This episode seemed to be hammering down that people were recognizing the odd behavior of Charlotte all the way around. So for Serac not to know something's up with Charlotte just by the very behavior and the not not having the remembering of their deal and all this, much less the actual ability to predict the future seemingly. So what is Where's the line drawn here? How much do you think Serac is capable of knowing or not knowing?
I mean, I think with this, you have to think it depends on attention, right? Where they are focused. And I think that most people did not recognize that it was someone different, including her son, really was just referencing a mom before the divorce, you know?
Yeah.
I think that he at the end of the episode knew exactly what was going on and that she was a host.
Gotcha. Johnny?
Well, just to go back, like I always do, Dolores, she wouldn't. I feel like she wouldn't at this point say another host belongs to her. Given her aspect as the free host, she let Maeve go, and she let Maeve live, didn't kill her. There's a lot of things that point to Dolores not doing that. But if it was a copy of herself, she definitely would belong to herself, I guess.
But she could be
But
saying that
maybe
emotionally, though. You belong
it's just
to
a
my heart.
protective thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was with a gun on the table too, though.
Well,
Put
that's
the gun on the
No.
table.
all
You
my
know you belong.
meaningful interactions with significant others and people, family members and stuff like that have all been with guns on the table. I think we are going to start to wrap it up here, though, and just go overall thoughts, guys. And I'll give my brief fever dream. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think that, we are kind of getting bottled episodes here, meaning like we're getting, going to get Maeve in the next one and the Man in Black all in one. And it's not really the best way to tell a story, but until they come together, it's really the only option they have right now. I think that, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to have issues with not seeing Maeve for this period of time. I spoke about this before. Sorry. A lot of things I say do end up being true. They're not necessarily the things we want, though, and they're not necessarily the things I want either. It's just kind of the facts of what we're dealing with the story. But I think that, like Axel said, the production is beautiful, and I actually am very emotionally engaged and connected. And it's not just the fever talking with the relationship with Caleb and Dolores. I'm actually very engaged with that, and I feel connected to it. And I'm also very connected to this idea of the struggle of even further than Charlotte the betrayer, but could she be like a betrayer twice over? Because this host, whoever it is, it doesn't matter because they're changing, as Axel and Hax have alluded to. This is still part of their evolution, even with Dolores. Like, this is them evolving. Like, they are becoming who they truly are in front of our eyes. They are becoming something new, something different. They don't have it all figured out, just like we don't. So I like the idea that she might be pulled by this connection with the child, right?
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting.
It is, and sorry, the other part, like, I fully thought that at some point that kid was going to die. Like, before, like, the affection side is shown, you see like you're not my mommy, and then you're like, oh, okay, no, it's just because you do that weird, and then like right before the scene ends, once again, it's like, you're not my mommy, and I'm like, oh god, no, dude, it's gonna happen. But
it's a kid. You can't kill it like a pedophile. You got to be careful. It's not as easy to forgiven. But how'd you feel?
I think that's the point, though. Oh yeah, I love the episode. But yeah, I definitely think that's the point. I don't see Dolores as the hero of the story anymore. And maybe it's the bias of this previous or this newest theory that I have out, but I think wholeheartedly that we're going to see this like switch, and we're very much going to see the hosts be the ones that are indiscriminately killing in the outside world, and we forgive them in the park because it's guests, right? They indiscriminately kill people running for their lives, and we're just like, oh, those are people that would otherwise have raped Dolores or killed innocent hosts. Now that we're in the real world, if that continues, very much paints a different picture, and I think it will continue. But yeah, overall, my theory, my thoughts of the episode, I loved it, man. I mean, Westworld rarely disappoints. I'm sure I was jumping up and down to know that this theory of mine that I legitimately was destroyed in the comments on, and people like after the fact, because in the theory I'm like, I will tattoo this to my body if this does not get come true, and it feels good, man. I don't know. I was jumping up and down. You can ask my wife. She was tell me to stop.
Well, I'm happy. Yeah, I know the feeling. I will very rarely. But yeah, it's not. Your theories are always very entertaining, and in some cases better than the story we get. I'd even go as far. So for this one, again, I was so sold on it that like I didn't understand what you were so excited about because I thought we already had confirmation on it, because but I was like, okay, no, actually, I'm just sold on his theory to that extent. So no, that speaks to the validity of your theory. So go support it, put it on Reddit, and let him get his vindication, people. Let him be vindicated. And then when he screws up, though, we will fucking let him have it. Fucking let him have it, because that's what we do on Before the Dust Settles. We are equal opportunists here, and we all have self fucking loathing and bunch of pride issues to put our stuff on Reddit and put yourself to that shooting galley. But no, props. That is insane. So no props to you, brother. Axel, overall feelings.
Thank you.
I really am enjoying this season. I really enjoyed this episode. We have just as much, if not more, to contemplate, discuss, going forth this week. I can't wait to talk. I'll be talking about this episode tomorrow with Ken on Westworld Theorycast, and then on Wednesday with Jenny and Brett, and Gina, Tim, and Andy on Friday. We're gonna be rocking it out. Head on over to DVR Podcast. Thank you for having me, Justin, Hacks, Johnny. You guys are awesome. Everyone in the chat. This has been wonderful. It's good to get out of what's happening in the world and dive into something new. And just across the board, man, people do complain about the old Westworld and saying, it has low ratings or this and that. First of all, HBO doesn't care.
Yeah.
They're building a whole new streaming service. They're going to get as much Westworld as they want, which is as much as they'll be given. But Lisa Joy and they could do this for, I almost said Christopher, it's Jonah. They could do this show for 10 more years. HBO would be love for them to do that. But I think it looks great. It's a lot of fun. And you're right. The emotional thing with the kid, they are doing what I really wanted them to do, what they did last year with Maeve. They're doing more successfully, I find, this year, which is those emotional moments. And they also brought back the little flashbacks with Caleb and his friend and him. So
yeah, which I'm sure that after another rewatch and that hopefully when my fever goes away, that's something I didn't get into because it's something we're gonna have to study and see more. But I think that we got some information that I'm not ready to speculate about yet. But there's some information there. There's some freeze framing and some Redditing to do.
There's definitely, they were in the military and then they were doing jobs together, or it was secret military stuff. We don't know. There was
information
war that's in some of the pre-season stuff, right? So something was going on.
Yeah, it gave us more of an. There's more than that than leads. Obviously,
like transfer, right?
Yeah, no, and I want to thank you guys because I was feeling, and I'm feeling a little better just doing this stream, and I was contemplating, but it honestly gave me the first off the ability to stay awake to do this because I knew I could just sit back and run OBS because I have such a good group of friends and colleagues with you, Hacks, and Johnny, that you guys could run this on your own. So I truly thank you for being good friends and good colleagues, and we'd be able to put out the content no matter what. So, but I might have been a little bit foggy tonight, and I probably talked more than I should have still. So I appreciate the hell out of you guys. Johnny, overall thoughts? Thank you, brother.
Well, Hacks, first off, you're going to need a few dead bodies to, complete a successful revolution. Okay. No, I don't think Dolores is the hero. I think she's settling into an anti-hero role. I like that for her. Caleb's backstory, relates to most humans. Most all humans have a tragic backstory. Her accepting the fact that, maybe humans and hosts have a lot in common. The thing with Dolores is she's a sociopath. she's going to do anything to complete her goal here. And we're going to have some nice, Caleb's a war veteran. He's willing to get stuff done, but once he starts seeing the death, it's not going to bring back good feelings for him. So you're going to have a little complexion there, so to speak. And with Serac, we see how thorough Rehoboam is at controlling everyone, and who knows what the hell they put into these people's minds. And Dolores is wanting to turn that system off, at least the system with the drips, like I was thinking before. At least that's what she says. And this, humanity with its blinders on, it's really reminiscent of today, especially if you just go down the conspiracy theory world.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about those blinders. A little bit of Matrix vibes with this. I think Tim Hines pointed that out. I really am digging this season of Westworld. Sure, I have some small complaints, but they are really small. I think it's very solid, and they're setting the story up fantastically.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. My complaints are very small. They're in almost just like the edits and stuff like that. That I have some small issues, but I think this is doing a much better job of presenting what it is to us. Unlike last season, which I did have more of an issue with how much of a turn they tried to take at the very end to kind of make it something they didn't present to us. This is very much so going to be an action-packed thriller, but it's got me emotionally connected on 2 levels within one episode right here. 2 new levels, you know what I mean? So that's that. They made me feel that's the job of entertainment, is to make people feel. So thank you guys so much, everybody in the chat. Look out for Johnny's videos. He's been putting out awesome, polished videos. Go to his channel, subscribe, get him over 1,000 subscribers. Come on, and obviously get over there and support Hax's last theory, because we don't want him down on that bridge, guys. We don't want him going down that road. We need his vindication. So you very rarely get to have your cake and eat it too. No, all jokes aside, though, in the YouTube world, you very rarely get to predict something that's entertaining and actually turns out to be worth a shit. Usually, it's like, what's the biggest speculation I can make that makes everything crazy and everybody loves it? But you got it both. You got it both, brother. So props to you. That is a rare piece of cake to be able to eat, but you get to eat it tonight. And love you guys as always, and we will see you guys next week.